Welcome to the Black to School podcast. With two or more gathered, anything is possible. I'm one of your hosts, Hughes.
And I'm your other host, Kedar, representing that Norfolk State. This podcast is to highlight successful stories of students that are currently at an HBCU, alumni of an HBCU, or affiliated with an HBCU. So make sure you tune in weekly.
Hey, give it up for our resident DJ, DJ7 Trey.
DJ7 Trey.
Look, welcome to the Black to School podcast where two or more are gathered. Anything is possible. I'm Kedar.
I'm your boy, Hughes.
And we are excited to be here just another week, bringing you these successful stories from HBCUs. Hughes, what's been going on with you this week, man?
Hey, man. Look, it ain't really been much, man. The only thing that I can say that is of real excitement is just the knowledge that I've been able to gain off of these books. I just was able to finish one of the books that me and you've actually been reading. And
Which
you
one?
actually was talking about one of them, and I had to go get one of them on my own. So if you have not read the book, there's no plan B for your A game. You got to go get that. And if you have not read The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, you have to go get that. Those are good readers. So just the fact that I've completed those and the Law of Attraction, now I can move on to some other books. So those are some exciting things for me going on. What's going on?
Man,
with
you know what's crazy is I never was a reader.
Me too. It's crazy.
Like I never was a reader. Like I didn't enjoy reading. Now, like it's big. Like I enjoyed getting the knowledge.
Yeah.
So now I'm the same way, man. Just every day I'm still doing this 75-day challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Working out twice a day and drinking a gallon of water.
How is that, man? Working out twice a day. Where do you find the time?
Early mornings, and it's gonna be late nights.
Okay.
But the hard part, that there's no plan B for your A game. He tells you is going to be hard. He said, let me not sugarcoat any of this. If you want to be legendary, if you want to be great, it is going to take discipline and it is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that you can do to eliminate the hard. And, and one of them is just making the decision to do it.
That's right.
Making the decision to get up, making the decision to do the extra set, making the decision to work out that day.
That's right.
So that's what I've been going through, man.
So shout out to Bo Eason for that dope book.
Yeah.
But we got a great show for you guys. We got we got two guys from Morgan State coming to y'all. We have Banye Iso from New York City. His journey was a little bit different from his partner, but he started a career in traditional accounting role in the oil and gas industry, but realized pretty quickly that he wanted more diversity. He transitioned to public accounting, performing financial statements, audits, but quickly realized he wanted to provide strategic direction. So he transitioned and was able to help public sector and Fortune 500 companies digitally transform and create his move for his next role, which is now with Google, where he works in there as the Google Cloud Central Strategy and Operational on their team. His name is, like I said earlier, Banye Iso. And the next person is also a graduate from Morgan State University. He actually is from New Haven, Connecticut. He's actually the Associate Director for Community and Inclusion at the Yale School of Management. And in his role, he does diversity, equity, and inclusion for the business department. So we just want to just bring out to the show Jordan Brooks and Banye Issa.
What's going on, fellas?
Oh no.
How y'all doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
For sure.
Glad to have y'all.
So we like to start every podcast off with a question, and everyone answers this question. What do you think is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment, I think I'll give two answers. Living for me, so finding a sense of self, sense of purpose, is it takes a lot to understand who you are and live life on your terms, and dismiss what society deems what is right or what anyone else thinks is right. So I think when I kind of switched shifts and started really just focusing on who I am, what I want, and moving in that space, I think that was an accomplishment within itself. Not one that's necessarily tangible, but something that you can feel, and you start moving different when you understand who you are and have your sense of self and sense of purpose. Aside from that, being on this PhD journey, it's been something that I've been working on for a long time. I remember the night before we graduated Morgan, we had a parent night dinner type of thing. And I had said that I would be Dr. Brooks one day, and 10 years later, I'm in the classroom now getting that done. So, those two accomplishments, one more tangible, the other one, something more personal.
That's what's up. Banye, what about you?
Still never calling you Dr. Brooks. Just letting you know that.
It's always a hater, man.
Been a hater since day one.
You sound like us, man.
I think, first off, I want to piggyback off what Jordan said in terms of finding self. I think that's probably the most important thing in terms of knowing who you are and what drives you every single day. I think it takes others a little longer. So for me, I didn't go through the traditional college route. I was a professional college student. Took me 8 years to graduate from college because I wasn't focused. Transferred 3 schools because I wasn't focused on the things that were important at the time. But I would ultimately say my greatest accomplishment is being able to raise a family and be a family man. Now that doesn't come without its shortcomings. I'm definitely far from perfect. But my daughters, they are me, right? And for me to be able to leave that lasting legacy is something that I strive for every single day. So my greatest accomplishment is being a good father and trying to be better every single day.
Yeah, fatherhood is great, man. Fatherhood is beautiful. I'm a father of 3, so Keto is a father of 5.
Yeah, I got kids, bro.
What?
Y'all making me feel like I'm a rookie in the game.
Talk about being a rookie. I don't have none, so I'm over here all right, I'm gonna let y'all have that.
No, I got a great idea. Why don't we all drop all of our kids off at Jordan's house? I think that'd be great.
Uncle Jordan, man. I love the kids.
So what school are y'all representing, man?
Morgan State University.
All day.
The national treasure.
Nah, I like it up there, man. I used to play ball, so we used to come up there and whoop up on y'all.
Oh, that's
We
that's
know
where
that.
we going with this.
You know what I mean? You know, whatever makes you feel better.
it's always somebody that we don't have no footage on that say they used to do what they used to do. Yo, I used to, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely no footage on me.
But look, we want to take it back where it all started with you guys. So, Jordan, we'll start with you. Take us back to your childhood leading up to high school. How two-family household, one-family household. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself growing up.
Yeah, so born and raised in New Haven. It's an inner city in Connecticut, for those who don't know. It's a heavily black populated city. Two-parent household, yeah, for sure. I was lucky in that regard to be able to have that guidance from both the mother and the father within the household, and not necessarily having to seek somewhat structure and leadership outside. But I'm first generation college. Now that my parents went to school, so school for me, it wasn't even something that was required. I was kind of naturally good at school, I guess. And school was just the next natural step for me. I knew I didn't want to be like what I saw or what I was around, so it was important for me to be able to try to be able to dictate what that next thing was for me, and that ended up being school. So it was a no-brainer for me to go to school. There wasn't really a thought behind it. Like I said, my parents didn't necessarily push it on me. But if it was what I was going to do, they was going to be behind that 100%. But I ended up, going to Morgan. It's funny to me because I was not intentional when it came to college. I'm like, look, whoever accepts me first is where I'm going, because I didn't even want to deal with the whole college process. And luckily for me, Morgan came through first. Morgan is the first school that accepted me. Morgan is the first and only school I visited, and it ended up working out for me.
Right. So Vanye, tell us a little bit about your childhood. I know you come from a Nigerian background, and I know you said that when you're in your home, it's not like you're in the United States. So tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, it's dead. As soon as you walk through the door, as soon as you turn that key and you walk in the door, you will now leave the United States of America. My parents played no games.
Back in Nigeria.
Yeah. So to answer your question about one parent household or two, I too was fortunate enough to come from a two-parent household.
Right.
My parents were like really strict.
I come from a Haitian background, so I know that strictness.
I grew up in a Haitian neighborhood, so it's just bad all the way around for me.
Right. Hughes' mom used to whoop us and pray for us all at the same time.
I feel like that's a black thing. You're gonna get whooped by any auntie or your mother's friend. They all got free reign and let you have it.
That's right.
Man, crazy.
Yeah, but I was gonna say that my journey. I'm the first boy of 6 children. So my parents had 6. So in my household, we have my older sister. She did her thing, and my next older sister, she did her thing a little better than my older sister.
Right.
Then my third sister, the one that's immediately older than me, she kind of like, I couldn't do better than her. So for me, I was like, well, I'm just gonna start from the bottom again. That's kind of how I looked at things.
Right.
So I was a troublemaker in my house. I didn't take school serious. I really only wanted to play basketball. I was like, I had hoop dreams. Obviously, that didn't come true. And just to be a little the opposite of Jordan, my parents they were college educated, both had master's degrees. They were well off, but I didn't want to live that life. I continuously left home just so I could, live the life, and I'm putting in quotations because I was definitely faking at the time. I remember MySpace. I don't know if y'all still remember that.
Yeah.
I said I was from Southside Jamaica, Queens. I wasn't from Southside Jamaica, Queens. I just wanted to be from Southside Jamaica, Queens so bad. I was always at my boy's house, like all day, every day in Southside. So I did hang out in Southside all the time.
Okay.
my parents kicked me out the house at 18. So I ended up living in Southside. And that's when things kind of like started to come together for me. I understood what it really meant to struggle, because before that it was like, oh, I'm faking the struggle, but now I really was struggling because I didn't have anything. So like if you told me 10 years ago I'd be where I am today, I would probably tell you, we gotta be politically correct here.
Yo, I asked the same question before we started.
If you asked me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, yo, go kill yourself, because like I wouldn't be here right now, because I thought I'd be in jail or something, because I just didn't, I wasn't on the right path. It wasn't until I actually got to Morgan, which was actually another mistake, that things started going together. I started school at St. John's in New York. Was only chasing girls, not going to class. I think I had 1 credit in 2 years. It was something crazy like that, and it was Discover New York. I'm from New York, so of course I got an A in that class.
Right.
But yeah, I ended up in Morgan, and I think that's where things really started to take off. Morgan ended up.
Let me ask you this though. Not really taking school serious, getting kicked out at 18. What made you say I need to go to college anyway?
I mean, going to college was never a question for me. It was more of a thing, right? Like it was just like it was the next step in life for everyone in my family. So it was never a question as to whether I would go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to go to college. I just thought things were going to be handed to me, and they weren't. So I don't think the question about college and whether I would go was ever really a choice for me.
Gotcha.
So it was never an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jordan, let me ask you this: being first generation college student, your parents, they didn't go to college, so who helped you with your applications? And no, Morgan State was the first, but were they the only school that you submitted to?
No, so my school, I mean, shout out to my high school. It's a lot of bad, but I'll talk about the good as far as the college process. They walked us through that process as far as applying, filling out FAFSA, and transitioning into whatever the next step was going to be for you, whether it was school, trade, military, whatever.
Gotcha.
So all of that was really done through school, because they gave us checkpoints as far as putting together the essays, and then how many applications are you filling out, what grants or whatnot are you using to pay for the application fee. So my school is really what did that, as far as the checkpoints were concerned. And then no, I didn't just apply to Morgan. I applied to Morgan. I applied to Howard. I applied to one in-state school because my counselor made me. But that was never even an option. I applied to Temple and then Penn State.
Gotcha.
And those were just schools, like for me, I knew I was either going to go to Morgan or Howard. But the other schools were, just to apply, just to say I applied to multiple schools. And I believe I filled out some sort of comment app too that allowed for me to apply to multiple schools. So it was more so like checking the box, like, all right, that school could work and that school could work.
Yeah.
But the more intention was done around Morgan and Howard.
So you knew that you were gonna go to an HBCU.
Oh yeah, it was 100%. I wasn't going. And the thing is, go ahead.
Well, what made you say I gotta go to a HBCU?
It's funny because I didn't even really know about HBCUs coming up, or even deep into high school. One of my boys who went to a different high school, he's playing ball. He ended up going to Morgan. That's how I even found out about HBCUs. There's not a huge HBCU push or culture up north, at least not in Connecticut. There ain't not too many people who go to HBCUs and then come back to the city and then really pushing that narrative. But he went. So when me trying to figure out schools, I'm like, oh, I know him. He's going here. Let me just look at it. And that kind of opened me up to the idea of HBCUs. And at that point, for me, from a youngin', it was all Black for me, everything. So having that opportunity to be at a school where it was just people who looked like me, it was an easy choice. Like it wasn't an option for me to go to those other schools.
That's dope.
So Banye, for you, why St. John's?
So St. John's, similar to Jordan, St. John's was the first school to accept me. I also wanted to play ball, so I applied to a lot of reach schools, just because, again, my family, the expectation was to go to a really, really good school, right?
Mm.
So my entire childhood, and I kind of talked about it a little earlier, was trying to live for my parents as opposed to living for myself. So I didn't really know what I wanted out of my college experience. So I applaud Jordan for knowing what he really wanted out of it. For me, it was go to school, get an education, so you can get a good job and work for somebody. So St. John's was the first school to accept me. They had a good basketball program, and it was right down the block from my house. So why not? That's kind of how it really went down.
Well, let me clean that up, because I didn't know what I wanted out of school. I don't even want that. So I just knew I was going to a black college. Like I had no idea what I was doing as far as being on a college campus. I didn't know anything about really researching majors or what can lead to this or what can lead to that. I just was like, all right, I'm gonna go to business school, and that was really it. Like I didn't really have the wherewithal to do the right research and do the real due diligence to figure out what made sense for me. And quite frankly, luckily I didn't, because I had no idea who I was at that time or what I was and who I wasn't. So being able to just kind of wing those decisions to where I am now, to where I have more sense of self and a true self-awareness, whatever I would have chose probably at that time would have been very different than probably what I would have ended up doing anyway, because I had no idea who I was then versus who I am now. And I definitely don't think I would have been able to predict or foresee who I am in the spaces that I'm in now. So I was just going to college because it was next. And I just said, I'm just going to be a business student. And that was that. Like, I ain't know nothing about anything else. Because I wasn't having those conversations. Nobody around me was even talking about school in that regard, or doing it from a more strategic standpoint. And that's one thing I talk about a lot now, is doing school intentionally. I just went and was gonna figure it out from there.
Yeah. So you guys end up going to Morgan State. Now, did you guys meet at Morgan State?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys were roommates, right?
Nah. All right, I gotta tell this story.
Okay.
Because if Jordan tells it, it's not gonna sound the way I need it to sound. So I decided I was a little bougie coming from where I came from, so I didn't want to live on campus. I was like, this is gonna mess up my flow with the chicks. So I was like, I need to have an apartment way off campus, somewhere where nobody could find me. So I live far from campus. So when I was on campus, I was homeless pretty much, and Jordan, was kind enough to loan me his couch for the 3 years that I knew him. So I was always in their room, chilling on their couch and eating their food and doing all other types of stuff. So, so you can call us roommates in a sense.
Okay. Okay. So Jordan, what's your
squatter?
version?
That's what
really?
He was a squatter.
Here we go.
So how did y'all meet in college?
Class, I'm pretty sure, probably practice class. It had to be class. We was both business students, so it had to be class. I actually don't know what class it was, but because we were both in the business school down there, it had to be through school, so through class.
I'm gonna tell y'all something. I don't think I've even ever told Jordan this though. So walking around campus, me being from New York, there was always something like New Yorkers had a swag about them, right? And so I remember seeing Jordan, and I was like, yo, this dude's from New York, because he always had on a fitted. He always had on a book bag that was kind of high up on his back. I was like, yo, this dude's from New York. He always had on sneakers. I was like, yo, this dude's from New York. Probably got a link with him because I was in Baltimore. I didn't know anybody. So I don't. It might have been something like that too, because we did have some of the same friends, but um, he was kind of swagger jacking being from Connecticut. He was trying to really
Wow,
from New York or something. But
wow. But nah, I'm proud to say I'm from New Haven. Um, and we're in very close proximity to New York, obviously. So a lot of what we see, a lot of what we do, and you'll hear a lot of how we even speak comes from the city or comes from New York.
Yeah.
So I
about
could
2 years
see
too
that.
late. Sorry.
So yeah, like we're the style and all that is definitely going to be influenced by
Yeah.
the closest big city we have. And quite frankly, I didn't even know. I mean, this is taking the conversation to a totally different place, but like I didn't even see people start to dress differently until I got to Baltimore
Yeah.
and seeing a different type of sneakers that they're wearing, the
Wow.
different coats, how they wore their jeans, the different like I've never seen nobody wearing the stuff that I seen until I got to Baltimore. And that kind of what made me double down on being from up north. I'm like, let me throw some more Jay-Z, let me throw some more Dipset on because I'm gonna make sure I'm not about to drink this water from down here. Like,
Look, you sound
sure,
like me when I first got down to Virginia.
word.
So look, I
It's
definitely
wild because
understand.
I'll listen to go-go music now and not have an issue
Nah, I
with it
still
and
can't
all
do it.
that. But
Right.
like I definitely was rejecting that whole culture before
You mean to
for a
tell
while.
me you didn't put on no cartoon character? You mean
the
to
tie, the bleach jeans,
right?
Yo, the stuff that I was seeing, and then I forgot what they called them. Them
the
like
slouch socks,
them 3/4 length Jordans.
Freeze,
I
bro.
didn't.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
bro.
slouch socks for the Timbs.
When I started seeing that, and then they was rocking like the Nike boots heavy, and
I did get
never
that phase.
we was rocking Timbs up north. Like that's what it was.
But not with the
But
slouch socks though.
it was a slouch socks.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what
not
they
gonna
call
lie
it, the
though.
slouch socks.
I'm not gonna lie.
Word.
I'm not gonna lie with the ACGs though. New York definitely did get to the party late. Jim Jones, I remember, started wearing those a little later.
Facts.
So I did get me a pair of ACGs, but
ACGs were
those
popping.
capris, nah, I couldn't do it. Go Go, I don't know how you listen to Go Go. First time I heard Go Go, when I say my face really literally hit the floor,
Yeah.
like
What the hell
'cause I
is
heard
this?
Baltimore Club first, and I had never heard anything like it. And I was
Yeah.
like, hey, these chicks is going crazy out here, and the dudes too. I was just like, wow. And then right after that, they played Go Go, and I was like, nah, I don't know what this is, but this is wild. So
Yeah, I'm still not a huge fan of go-go.
Yeah.
Still not. I can't. I'm from Atlanta. It just don't. It
I
don't do
mean, it's
that.
different. It's
Yeah,
definitely different. That
my
was
experience was pretty much the same as yours. Being in the sweatbox, and then they playing the music from up north, and then they start playing go-go, and then you just see a rush from the bleachers, and you're like, "What is this?"
yeah. You
And
thinking
people
it's
just going
juvenile
crazy.
coming
You
on, and
just
it's
see
not
everybody from up
juvenile.
north just going up to the bleachers, and you're like, "Dang,
That's
what is this?" Um, so y'all talk about that experience coming from up north and then coming to Baltimore. Now, who was some influential professors while you guys were on campus? I know, getting there. What was like that for you?
It's wild because like I think Proctor gonna be like top tier for sure. But
number
like I'll
one for
say
sure.
the first professor for me that I connected with on that level outside of you just being my professor is a man named Kent Ballard. Mr.
Mm,
Ballard, he was my orientation teacher. So that's like the business class that all the business school students go through freshman year. And
right.
I'll never forget the first day of class. He locked the door. The at the time class was supposed to start. So luckily I get the class on time and whatnot. But he locked that door right behind whoever the last person was at the time, and whoever was out there wasn't getting in class, and that was like the first lesson that he taught all of us. He's like, nah, if you're gonna be in my class, you're gonna be on time. And that's the first time too I heard like being on time is being late, being early is on time, and being late is not, to never be forgotten, something like that, whatever it was. But like he put that into us early, and then ever since then, like I've been vibing and connecting with him and building with him ever since then. He's the one who wrote my graduate school recommendation and my
Wow.
doctorate recommendation. Like
Right.
for me, that was like the most influential?
For me, outside of Dr. Proctor, God rest his soul, I would probably say it was our accounting chairperson. The reason why I would say her is because she didn't believe in me at first. Like she saw me for who I was, and I was a slacker at the beginning. I think it was around my junior year where things really started to click for me, and I started to really take school a lot more serious. Oh, junior year times two. This is when I really started to take things really serious. And she had sat me down and was like, look, you're a smart guy. You need to learn how to apply yourself. She's like, the moment you realize how great you are and you apply yourself, great things will come to you. And that stuck with me until this day because she was right. I really did need to apply myself. And, you know, since that year, I have applied myself and great things continue to befall me. And I'm hoping that it continues to be that way. Just because of the kind of person I am, I'll say, like, people call me a-hole, but like with me, you get what you see. Like, I'll probably say with Jordan, like, I wasn't trying to become Jordan's friend. Like, from day one, I was Jordan's friend, and it was like he was probably like, "Yo, this dude is too much. Like, he needs to fall back a little bit." But that's who I am, and I think people appreciate that about me once they actually get to know me. But at first, they're probably like, "Yo, this dude's a little wild. He's like, take a step back." You can approve or disapprove of that statement, Jordan, but yeah.
I mean, you assessing yourself, so it's all good.
No, I know you. I already did got some things doing it as well.
This like group therapy.
Right. Now, here's what's interesting. Both of you have different influences for college. Jordan, you was like, "Yo, I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going."
Right.
Banye, you was like, "Yeah, I'm going, but I don't want to go, or I'm really not about that college life outside of social." But now both of you are at Morgan State. Were there any challenges that happened along the way before you graduated where maybe you had to rely on each other, you had to rely on other resources? Can you talk about any challenges you had and how you was able to push through? I know, Banya, you got 8 years of challenges.
It's a nice way to put it. So I spoke about my junior year times two. So I realized it was my junior year times two when I realized that the people who I had gotten into Morgan with were starting to graduate again. And this was now the second time that's happening where people that were in my life were starting to leave. And I think around this time, it was myself, Jordan, and a couple of other dudes. All of them had a plan for what they wanted to do. Not necessarily like a solid plan, but they knew that they were graduating on time. So that's kind of what I'm speaking about.
Right.
And I didn't know I didn't have one because I was still like something like 60 credits short. So it was actually one of our other boys, Will. He actually sat me down and was like, "Man, you need to like really map out exactly what class you're taking, what semester, how many credits it's worth, when you're going to finish each requirement, and then so forth." That was probably one of the most influential things that happened, and that was obstacle number one. Obstacle number two was I was paying for everything myself, so there was some financial constraints going on as well. So around this time, I had to pick up another job to pay for my way to go through school because I wasn't getting financial aid either. So the financial constraints, I think it was my junior year too. I thought I was gonna have to drop out because I didn't think I was gonna have enough money to pay for school. This is where pride comes into play. So all of you people who are prideful, sometimes you gotta bite the bullet and be humble. I went back to my parents and I was like, look, this is my plan to graduate. Um, I need some money to help me graduate from school. Um, and of course, that came with like the lecture of life. My God, I will never forget that lecture. But my dad came through and they paid my school fees for the rest of that semester. And I kept my promise. And I think that was the first time I was ever on Dean's List that semester. So my dad got his return on his investment.
Immediately.
Those are probably the two big things for me.
That's dope, man.
It is.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me came early on. So going to college was already a financial struggle for my parents, but they was in their head like, we'll figure it out. That's the type of parents I have. It's not necessarily the most strategic bunch, but they're like, if we're gonna do something, we'll figure it out and at least just start and then, figure out the rest from there. But halfway through, they realized paying their portion of it because they only was able to get loans up to a certain amount, and had no scholarships. So up until probably December of that time, they were paying for what they were paying out of pocket and realized it wasn't going to work out as far as paying that plus dealing with, living. So they made a decision, either they're going to sell the house or I'll come back up north. Because that's one thing I was fortunate enough to have too. Like my parents owned their home at that time. So it was either, like I said, sell the house or you could come sell the house and you can stay, or sell the house and you can stay, or come back and we'll keep the house. And they let me make that decision, which was, for an 18-year-old at the time, having that burden of like, damn, do I, take what they worked for away from them just so I could stay here? Or do I come back, allow for them to keep the asset that they had, and then move on from there and figure out what school was going to look like going forward. But they let me decide, and I decided to stay, of course. And at that moment is when I had a new responsibility, and really that was to not let them down, really give them that return on investment. And it wasn't even really about making them proud. It was making sure that recognizing that they were willing to do whatever they could in order to support me. So you talk about parents, it's really like they held it down while I was in school. They sold the house and went and got an apartment. Home to my little sister. Meanwhile, I'm at school, hustling, bustling down there, trying to get things right to stay and then graduate. So at that point, it was like I also need to get out of here on time too, because they still paying that sophomore year to junior year. I had the apartment that Bonnie, we was all staying at. But the difference is like now they paying a rent monthly for me as well, in order for me to be down there. So it's like I can't not finish on time. And then that next challenge, that next big decision rather, came when I got offered a fellowship to go to Morgan's Business School for an MBA. The only kicker was the school itself was paid for, but I didn't have money to pay for where I was going to stay. So my parents again were like, "We'll pay for you to stay down there. If you're gonna go to school, go ahead and do that." But that's the time where I was like, "No, I'm not gonna keep putting this burden on y'all." So I left Morgan. I graduated, did finish the undergrad program, and then came back up north, took a job up here, and I did graduate school on my own. Like I took out the loans and was paying for it on my own to take that off from them. But that to the point, as far as like what the challenge was, it was those moments where I had to make that decision around like staying there and then being there, intentionally doing well, and making something out of it versus coming home. So I didn't really have it wasn't a need for me to lean on anybody per se. It was more so making sure that I was willing and able to take what I was doing down there seriously, but also make sure I was getting out on time, because that was the only thing that was on my mind. Get up out of here on time so they can get their money back. Like I'll never forget my father. Not finished. He's like, "Damn, now I can buy some underwear because you ain't in school no more." Like, and that was real at the time for me. So they made that sacrifice for me. So that was really the challenge. It was kind of twofold, my challenge, but also theirs. But a decision that I ended up making to stay. And now, it worked out.
So I want to ask you guys a question. We never have asked this question, but because of your circumstances that you guys have been through, I want to ask if you guys could take me back to graduation day. What was that feeling like?
You know what's funny? Graduation day wasn't the day that hit me. It was the day before. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, we had the parent teacher, like I'm a kid. We had the parent appreciation dinner the night before, and it was for anybody who wanted to go. I don't even know if we had to pay, but it was a dinner the day before graduation, where however many students we filled up the ballroom, and we just had a big dinner with our parents, and then one by one, students got the opportunity to go up to the podium and just give show appreciation to their parents and whatnot. um that's the moment that it was real for me, because I'm like, damn, I did it. Like y'all helped me through this, y'all made this possible. Like this is for you all, like this ain't for me.
Yeah,
um in that moment is when I thanked them to their face, like, this, I did this because of you, for us though.
yeah,
um and being at that podium, being able to understand and recognize the responsibility now that I have moving forward, being a graduate, being a first graduate, but also making them happy. They were able to say that they raised a college graduate,
Right.
and for me that was enough. But looking at them in their face and genuinely saying thank you for the opportunity to be able to even stay here and stand on this podium, that was it for me, because everybody shared the stage the next day at graduation, right? Like,
mm,
you just a fish in the sea at that point. They calling your name, you walking up, you getting off the stage, and that's it. Um, but being able to do that the night before, look them in their eye and really say thank you, that was it for me, because the professor that I had mentioned earlier, Mr. Ballard, like, he came to me graduation day, was like, look, 10,000 other people did the same thing you did today. They all walked across the stage. How do you separate yourself from them? What's
mm,
next for you? So graduation day was just another accelerator for me, as far as like, now I got to really kick it into high gear, because now I got a bigger responsibility, and it's not just I have a bachelor's degree. It's now, what's next for you? How do you separate yourself from the rest of the people who did the same exact thing as you today? And then it was also, again, like, what's next? And keep continuing to raise that bar for myself and people who look like me. So
yeah,
graduation was just another like challenge. I didn't even feel accomplished at that
yeah,
on graduation day. The day before is where I felt appreciation,
yeah,
and then the day of graduation was like, all right, cool. Now what's next?
yeah.
That's dope.
Because I
Speaking
mean,
of,
people don't understand the commencement is actually the beginning.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's funny that you say that. You felt now it's like what's next.
And what's even wilder, like hearing the word commencement, I didn't even know what that meant
Right.
until getting to college. Like, I'm just thinking graduation, like that's what it is. But
Yeah,
like, you're right, when it comes to that, that's the moment where it's like, now the work starts.
yeah.
You did this thing. Now, what are you gonna do with it? Because otherwise, anybody else could have had this. So yeah, I definitely feel you with that.
Yeah.
so Jordan. So I guess the question is now, what is next? So you left Morgan, you went back up north to get a job in New Haven. You also got your MBA in New Haven as well.
No, so I didn't get an MBA. My master's is in organizational psychology.
Okay.
Um, I got introduced to um, OB, so organizational behavior, at Morgan. Actually, I took a class and fell in love with that side of business. So understanding what makes people do what they do,
Hmm.
and applying theory and research to business, and not just be about like the hard skills of managing or whatnot. So I
Mm,
ended up doing a master's degree here in Connecticut, in New Haven, but in industrial organizational psychology.
it's big.
That's big,
So
man.
so one of the actual, not one of, but the motto for Morgan State is growing the future, leading the world. How do you feel like you have applied that now into your career with that motto?
So I'll say career and like personally, what right now the path that I'm on is becoming what I never was able to see, but what I know I needed. And I didn't know I needed this at the time, but now as an adult, being able to see, you know, at what points in my life I could have used a person who had expertise or knowledge in graduate schools or undergraduate schools or career advice, things like that. I'm filling gaps right now, and I think really that's where the essence of growing the future and leading the world is for real. So it's being that. And that's really why I went to go get well, I'm in a doctorate program right now. Like I got asked that question earlier today, like, you know, how do you plan to leverage it? You know, students, when I speak to prospective students for the school, you know, everyone's trying to come with their, you know, most creative and unique questions. And someone asked that question similar to this, and it's like, it's not about any profound, there's no profound reason why I'm doing what I'm doing or trying to live up to even that mission. I'm simply one, it was a goal that I set for myself, and two, I'm becoming who I never met before. And that's within myself, and then also people who I've been able to be fortunate enough to be in contact with, but may have been missing certain aspects of what I may have needed. So I'm filling gaps within myself, but with the people who I've also come in contact with, and hopefully at that point being able to influence people who are coming behind me. So we're talking about growing the future. I'm still growing at that and within my own right as well. And for me, it's a lifelong journey as far as learning is concerned and growing. Like I take pride in being fluid to make sure that I'm adaptable to whatever the times are, but also am able to stay grounded with who I am, and still be able to stay in touch with people or be in touch with people who are coming up behind me, and not be so out of touch to where you're looking at me and like, oh, this person, I can't have a conversation with him.
Right.
And that's what I feel like I wasn't able to see as a kid. Because of course, I knew a couple of people with PhDs when I was a kid, but they were like, you weren't approaching them. They weren't people. They weren't accessible. It didn't feel cool. It didn't feel sexy to be able to go talk to them. But now, like, I'm just as normal as they come. And yeah, I also am about to have a doctor in front of my name. So that's to me where the essence comes in.
Tell people what you do though.
For a living.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I work for Yale School of Management. So I lead diversity strategy there when it comes to recruiting, and I sit on their MBA admissions team. So diversity initiatives, diversity strategy and implementation, and then also I have a seat on the admissions committee for the full-time MBA program.
That's dope, man. That's big. That's big.
That's big time, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Banye.
So
So look, I was just asking about to ask you, you know, with all the challenges that you had to go through for all those 8 years, that day of graduation, take me back to that moment on graduation day. How did you feel with all the challenges that you had already been through?
crazy enough, I actually remember graduation day very, very fondly. I actually found a picture of me and Jordan on graduation day. We were kind of, I sent it to him and I laughed because I still had a full head of hair and had no gray. Um, but I remember graduation morning. Um, one of the days, my dad actually said he was proud of me. He doesn't really show that much emotion. Actually, he never shows emotion. Um, that was one of the days he said he was proud of me for my persistence. So it was gratifying to say the least,
Yeah.
and it made me more hungry, to be honest with you. Um, I'm one of those people who really feeds off of positive energy,
Right.
and when I get positive energy, it makes me like strive for more, right? So, um, yeah, I just say that one of my most gratifying moments.
Yeah. That's dope. Um, And then I asked Jordan, with Morgan State's model being growing the future, leading the world. How have you been able to apply that in your life currently right now, or even in your profession?
I mean, so I'd say I live that every day now. For me, one of the things that's big for me, I'm really big in diversity and inclusion. Um, Number one, I'm gonna really try to stay restrained right now, um, because I think it's a cute subject right now in the
Mm,
business world. Like everyone's talking about diversity and inclusion, but they're not really about it.
mm,
Um, but for me, one of the biggest things was, so Jordan and I are really, really, really reconnected in the last 3 years.
right.
I went back for my MBA, and um, it started with me getting jobs um, at Deloitte. I was like, oh, okay, so I'm good enough to work at Deloitte. Okay, cool. What else am I good enough to do?
Right.
I was like, okay, now I'm gonna go get my MBA. Then it started off, oh, I'm gonna apply to a bunch of good schools, and ended up settling on, not let me not say settled. I applied to Yale and Wharton, and I ended up getting into Yale. And I remember I was going up to New Haven, and I'm like, yo, Jordan, yo, I'm in New Haven. I might need to crash at your spot. And he's like, again?
Not
Again.
again. Not again.
He was like, and I remember because he got this proper R. He's like, what for? And I was like, dude, I'm about to start at Yale. And he's like, what? He's like, I just started working there like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, what? And it
It's
was
crazy.
crazy how things just materialized. So um, I bring that to say a lot of us tell ourselves we can't accomplish these things, right? Like, oh, I can't go to Yale, or I can't go to Harvard, I can't work at this most prestigious company because of my upbringing. Nah, nah. Throw all that out the window. Um, we're good enough to be anywhere because we've been through more than anyone else has. Our expectations are much higher than everyone else's because we go through that much more. Um, so what I've been doing is really pushing people to break down those walls of self-doubt or that imposter syndrome that I still really struggle with till this day. Um, and letting them know, look, all of those people who look like they got their heads on straight, they're thinking the same things you are. Um, we can't keep saying, oh, um, I need change before I get in the game. My whole thing is you can't change the game if you're not in the game
Mm,
or if you don't know how to play the game.
right.
So we need more representation. We need more brothers like us, more sisters like us, um, at the forefront pushing these initiatives. So we can really make a difference. And I mean, like having, I really applaud you brothers for the show because we need more people doing things like this and getting the word out. So we believe in
It's
ourselves.
it's crazy you said that because what you said is what I went through in the way that's how I ended up at the graduate school that I went to. And it's not like some prestigious graduate school by no means. I had one person who was telling me you need to aim higher now that you left Morgan. He's a Morgan graduate. He's from like the class of 86, something like that. And I had gotten connected with him through an internship that I was in. Um, and he's like, look, go to work for a couple of years, and then when you're ready, I'm gonna help you apply to get your MBA from Wharton. He's a Wharton grad, and that's the one professional regret that I have is not listening to the advice that he was giving me,
Right.
not recognizing the opportunity because I'm like, I can't go to Wharton. That ain't no different than Yale. I grew up in a city where Yale is, and you don't see me in there. Like, what's going to be any different trying to apply to a Wharton? They're not going to want someone who looks like me.
Right.
Because even with him, I'm like, and I'm not you, so they're not going to let me in there.
Right.
But not understanding the opportunity that was in front of me and the he was really speaking life. He was trying to at least speak life into me at that time, but I wasn't able to see it. And now that I look back, I'm like, damn, that was not my way out or my ticket to leverage or whatever. It was another person who looks like me, who had the information, who was giving it to me for free, and I was unable to see it and receive it. And that was because my own self-doubt, my own, imposter syndrome that I was dealing with at the time, feeling like I'm not enough to be in a space like that. And to Bonnie's point, a lot of us end up going through things like that and then missing out on opportunity because we're not allowing ourselves to even try to do something as great as that. So I just had to say that because that's like, I'm gonna always tell that story because that would have been my way of proving myself wrong. Because it wasn't even to stick it to the people who were in those spaces that I felt like I didn't belong. It was really to prove myself wrong, but more so prove myself right, that I'm just as good as anybody who's in these spaces. And 10 years, no, not 10, maybe like 8 years later now, I'm telling other Black brothers and sisters about this same thing to apply to Yale, because now I have the information and I'm trying to give that information. So I'm saying these same things to them because they're saying to me like, look, I can't get into it. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you can. The only reason why you think you can is because you don't know how to play the game that these other people have been playing for years. So here's the information. And that's really where you start bridging gaps to, especially when it comes to success and wealth gaps, or simply just achieving at that level. There's no reason why we can't be in these same classrooms. But it's important to have somebody champion you or have someone with the information to be able to pass it on to you. But you got to be in the space to receive it. And that's one thing that I was not. I was not ready to receive information at that level just yet. So I feel you on the whole imposter syndrome and talking about being good enough and all that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of what you're saying too, because I think this is important for us, right? I think the reason why I was receptive to the message is because I had somebody who was probably the same age I am now telling me that I was good enough when I was probably like 27, 28. And I think that's important because we're looking at where, like, when we're talking like 18-year-olds, they can't see 15 years down the road. That doesn't make sense. They don't, there's too much that happens in that space, right? But when you're talking to somebody who might be like 6, 7 years older than you, you're like, I can actually see that,
I can
right?
see that, yeah, word.
And so I'm looking at a dude who's young, he's handsome, he played ball, like he did everything that I'm doing, right? I'm like, oh, and you did this? And you're telling me I can do this too?
Right.
So we need to make sure that we do our part, telling people who are receptive to the message, Jordan, to your point, maybe not 18-year-old, 19-year-olds. Maybe we're talking to 25, 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds, because we're at that age right now where they can see themselves being us in a couple of years. And they're more mature. Like, maturity is a big piece of it. So we need to make sure we're doing our part for the generation. I'm a member of NABA, and their motto is "Lift as we climb," and that is one thing that I want to make sure that I continue to do. As I'm climbing, I'm hoping to bring any and everybody that looks like me with me, because I need more of us at the table.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. So look, just this podcast, we created it so that we can influence those young individuals that are making decisions about college. There's a lot of parents, Bonnie know about this. It's a lot of parents that has that influence over what a kid goes to college. And we made the podcast for alumni to just learn more about the people that graduated from their school. If you guys can just sum up quickly why a young kid out of high school or somebody that's choosing to go to college should choose a HBCU right now, what lessons did you learn, or what advice would you give them about choosing going to a HBCU?
My whole thing is know who you are, right? Not everybody's meant to go to college, number one. If you're not meant to go to college, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. Like their success is defined by what you define success to be. Like I'm not forcing my daughters to go to college. I'm trying to save money for them when they turn 18. If they want to go to college, cool. If they want to start a business, hopefully I have saved enough for them to start a business. But if they do want to go to college, I will encourage them to go to an HBCU. Number one, Morgan, there's a level of pride I have about going to Morgan. I'm sure you guys have it about your school, right?
Right.
There's something to say about the brothership, the sisterhood that you attain at these schools. And I'm not saying that you can't be a brother with a white person or a Spanish person or anything like that, but it's different because we've gone through different things in life. Um, because we look the same, because we probably have more of the same types of tastes, we can connect on a different level. And then we also learn, like we were talking about, I'm from New York. I came down to Baltimore and I learned more about what it meant to be a black man. Like I never knew what go-go was. Um, there were certain terms that I've never heard. There are people from California, there are people from Florida. There were some white people at our school, right? And it was interesting to learn all of those perspectives in a place that I knew was safe. And I think that word safe is really important. I didn't feel like I was an imposter at Morgan. I felt as though I could be me because I didn't have to worry about, oh, they gave me this grade because I'm black. No, I don't have to worry about any of that. Um, so I think that safety net that it provides is why I would definitely uh, promote an HBCU for sure. And then Morgan's just the best HBCU anyway. So I got like
There's also that. There's also
What about
that.
you, man?
Yeah. So like, anytime that I speak to a high school kid thinking about college, I have that same conversation. Like, is college for you? Is this what you want to do? And not to say that you need a plan, but if this is the next step, it needs to be done intentionally. Now, granted, college provides you 4 years to figure it out, um, but at this point, we're entirely too advanced, entirely too intellectual, even at that young tender age of 17 or 18, whatever a high school student is, to be able to make a choice that makes sense. And to me, being at an HBCU, I didn't know what I was. I just knew I wanted to be around my people. That was it. I didn't know that there would then birth this new sense of pride, this new sense of self, and this newfound love for really being black and being around black people. So being able to be in a space like that where it was nothing but motivation and challenge in a good way, and love, more importantly. It was a lot of people who looked like you from all over the world. It was interesting for me to be able to see poor black students and then really rich black students all in the same space, all taking up the space on an HBCU campus in Baltimore, all after the same thing. And that's really to better themselves, better their family, and leverage the essence of what it is, what it means to be on a college campus, but more specifically a black college. You're not going to be able to recreate that with your black student unions at these PWIs. It's not the same. That love that you get and receive and you feel on an HBCU campus is something that really can't be defined. You just have to be there to understand that feeling. And you'll also be around some of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet in your life. You won't have that opportunity to be around as much brilliance ever because the spaces just aren't built like that outside of an HBCU campus. The lessons, the resources, the networks, that you're able to get on any college campus. Of course, you're able to get it at a black school as well. But as Bonnie mentioned, the safety net of being amongst your people is super important, or is super important. So being able to speak to anyone about that decision to go to college, and then specifically in HBCU, like I'm always going to lean in extra when it comes to, make sure you give an HBCU a look. Of course, it's always going to be make sure you give Morgan a look too, like, but it has to be, starting with that HBCU, because you really won't be able to ever experience anything similar to that. You're gonna have to go like the New Orleans to the Essence Festival or something similar to that, like to where you'll be able to feel as much love and safety and like pride and joy of being who you are, and not having to make excuse for that or code switch or do any of that. You could just be you. Your blackness is really, welcomed in that space, because you're gonna see it all throughout the campus, all different types of black, and that's what's dope about it. You see the full diaspora of who we are, and you get to the essence. So if that ain't is not enough, like go to a homecoming, because that's what most people do. Go to a homecoming and see people who look like you, or go visit on a Tuesday and see normal college students just getting after it, because that's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see thousands of black people who are just getting after it on a daily basis, and you can be a part of that legacy. You can build upon your legacy and be a part of the next great people who are able to say that they were fortunate enough to graduate from a historically black college. So, that I feel like I just made a pitch to people, but
we love it too. We love it.
I taught Morgan more than I taught my graduate school. Yeah, like I not that I don't care. I'm not proud of my graduate school, and even as doctorate, like I'm never gonna talk about those schools as much and with as much passion as I do talk about Morgan or any other HBCU, because that's how much it means to me, and that's how much it was able to influence and impact my life to where I am now. Like, could I have been here in the same position as far as career wise with another school? Yeah, but I wouldn't be talking with the same pride, especially being able to lean in when I see a black applicant come through from an HBCU, and I'm like, yeah, it's lit now. I want you in here. I'm gonna do whatever I can to coach you to make sure this thing works out for you. So it's
that's dope, man.
Can I ask you a question, Jordan? I know y'all supposed to be asking questions, but
like you just
it's real. It's real. Do you think that you like when you were working in corporate America, do you think you kind of cowered the name Morgan, or were you still talking with that same level of pride?
Just curious. I didn't know how much I cared about it until I came to Yale, because now I have something to compare it to, because you have all of these students walking around with these blue eyes on.
Yeah.
Like, right, I'm like, yo, y'all don't know nothing about what it's like to be on a real campus down south. Like, that's living right there. Yeah. But no, it didn't come up when I was in banking for them 6 years. School didn't come up. It was never a topic, because it was always about trying to save assets or try to double down on whatever accounts you had. It was never school, and it wasn't also, not that it wasn't necessary, but it's not something that was a topic. I'm working out of school, so I'm always talking about schools and comparing schools. It gave me more pride being able to be on an Ivy League campus, but talk about the HBCU experience. So not that I didn't have the same pride, I just didn't talk about it as much as I didn't need to. But when I needed to, I definitely picked up any HBCU. But now I talk school every day, so it's a little different.
So look, where can everybody find y'all on social media?
You ain't finding me on social media.
I mean, so I'm _Mr. BR00 _BR00KS. So _Mr. Brooks, or 2 underscores Mr. Brooks. And then my name on Facebook or whatnot. So yeah, like I ain't nothing up there other than me working out. That's it. But I'm happy to connect with people. But more importantly, like people can easily reach out to me. Like I'm accessible. I make myself super accessible to anybody that's looking to, get an MBA or talk about Yale or education at that level anyway. So yeah, I'm accessible.
What should they email you? How should they get in touch?
Jordan.brooks@yale.edu. JOURDAN.BROOKS@yale.edu.
And Banye, before we get out of here, I just want to, what do you do?
So right now, I'm a strategy and ops manager at Google. So I help Google try to figure out how they can make more money. So I'm still working for somebody else, clearly. I'm trying to change that narrative, hopefully soon. But yeah, that's pretty much it at a high level.
That's dope, man.
Also, I wanted to say I didn't mean to say that I wasn't accessible. I was just really just saying I really ain't on social media.
Hey, look, we understand.
Nah, yeah, I'm definitely accessible. I do actually have an Instagram, but I don't even know what my name is because I'm never really on it. If y'all wanna find me on LinkedIn, you can type my name in. You guys are sharing the video, it's spelled exactly the way it is on the screen.
Yeah.
And then if you want to email, you can email banye.ito@yale.edu as well. So.
Sure, fellas.
Hey man, this is dope, man.
We appreciate y'all coming through, man.
We appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. This is really dope.
Thank you.
Really good for the culture, man. We appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, appreciate you.
For the culture.
Nah, man.
Funny, I got that tattooed on me.
We'll let you know when it's being aired.
Yeah. So y'all can tag.
Yo, Jordan. Jordan, I gotta shout you out, man. I appreciate the compliment you was giving me, brother. Like, yo, you talking about so brilliant, man. Yo, that makes me feel. that was really warming, bro. Like, I was like, yeah, man, I appreciate you.
This guy.
Well, thanks for coming, y'all.
Video. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, yo, first of all, we don't ever talk to people that long. The genuine curiosity that they both have with life is what captured me.
Yeah, the evolution.
Right. So look, this is the part of the episode where we call Lesson of the Day, where Hughes and I will talk about some key takeaways from the interview. Hughes, how about you? What was a key takeaway for you?
For me, it was we always ask our guests what challenges did they go through, and for me was the fact that Jordan, was faced with the challenge of the decision at the tender age of 18. Do I stay in school or do I allow my parents to sell their asset of selling their home just so I can be in school? And the fact that they were able to do that for him, and then that drived him to even make sure that he completed his part of the bargain.
Right.
And then for Banye to, he went through challenges that he was still trying to find himself, but to go through St. John's and the 8 years of the challenge that he went through, and then finally reach his goal of graduating college. I mean, that was big. So for me, it was never give up, persevere, and you're always going to find a way to get over your challenges.
Right.
What was it that you were able to get from it?
For sure, I got sacrifice.
Mm.
And we can look at sacrifice in the example that you gave where Jordan's family literally sacrificed an asset by selling their home just so their kid can go to finish college. But I think Banye also sacrificed. He sacrificed his old self to succumb to a new him.
That's big.
And just having a friend that would sit him down and say, look, this is how you map out your college career. But what I don't think we're giving weight to as well is that he ended up going to grad school for his MBA.
Mm.
And it's one thing to say, bro, I did 8 years, I'm getting out of college, I am done. For him to want to continue the quest, the journey for knowledge, and sacrifice the years of what it takes to just do that. I got sacrificed. Yeah.
That was big. So look, if you got something from that interview, we want y'all to share with us. Email us. Let us know at blacktoschoolpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you got from that lesson of the day. If you even got 2 to 3 people that you know that we should be interviewing, send us their names. Email us blacktoschoolpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on IG at Black to School Podcast. Follow us on Facebook.
Share, like, subscribe.
Yeah. So look, make sure y'all tell a friend to come back, and we'll see y'all next week.